Greetings, Cybertronians, I'm DrLockdown, and in spite of the kerfuffles with the last video, Funwhole has fortunately reached out to me once again to take a look at another modular building of theirs. I'm fairly certain this one is new, as I was told this was a pre-production piece with a specific release lineup. I was able to negotiate a slightly earlier video release, however, as December is, well, pretty much full in terms of videos. I guess this is just one last sponsored sample for the road before we go into Legends tomorrow. Unfortunately, I don't have any time-lapse for this because I ran into recording issues for the first part, but either way, it was a very fun build. It's a much simpler beast than the antique store from last time, and I still reckon I prefer the build of that antique store, but it was still a very fun build nonetheless. The light threading, I feel, was a lot more robust. It's spread throughout the build in far more interesting ways. This is a more experimental build overall, and they've done a bang-up job. Of course, as mentioned in the last video, the minifigures aren't really to my taste, so I left those to the side. But also, as with last time, my enjoyment of this set is with the building itself, so not much lost there. You know what they say, don't be racist, I am a building, or however that song went. The record store plays around a lot more with its tiered building. It's not just a giant rectangular prism, and as such, the exterior is just as important as the interior. I really like the way it seems cobbled together, where extensions have been added and bits have been repaired. The light effects go incredibly hard. Although there's significantly less overall, I think they might actually be utilized better. Each point sort of makes a statement on the build, drawing your eyes to that particular point. It's a nice way of doing things, even if sadly the battery box isn't as robust as the previous set. Perhaps some greater wiring housing could have made this better. The mixture of record shop and proper recording studio might seem weird, but I can probably list off at least 3 such instances in my home city, or at least ones that did exist. There's been an unfortunate paradigm shift since the COVID-19 pandemic, and I'm not sure they're still open. But still very nice overall, and a nice trip down memory lane of my gigging days before I primarily switched to corporate and wedding functions. Yes, I am a musician on the side, but I wish it was more glamorous than it sounds. The windows echo a lot of the brilliance I saw with the antique store. Nowhere near as complex, but still very nice overall. I also really like the printed pieces. They're generic enough so they don't feel tacky and out of place, but they also mirror the music industry's zeitgeist closely enough. Whoever designed this set clearly has done their research and hasn't just belched out a half-assed approximation. Gotta give kudos where kudos is due. Of course, much like the previous version, you can separate the levels, but this time they've actually included removable interiors, so it's not really that necessary to do so. I don't think a feature like this would have been feasible on the antique store, but it's really nice to see here, especially in junction with the way the building is laid out. This whole layout takes me back. I think I actually remember playing with a bassist who had a combo of recording studio and house all together in a similar layout, though his house was to the back of the property and it ended up getting flooded. I know I'm supposed to be talking about this brick set, but I find myself just going down memory lane, which I guess is nice in its own way. The interior details, particularly of the recording studio, are right on the money, right down to the included fan, because air conditioning never seems to work in these spaces, and they never make enough money to warrant fixing them. Of course, even to this day, I can never make heads or tails of the recording equipment and such in these rooms. I feel the desk should probably be a lot more extensive, as recording artists seem to have an obsession with knobs and levers and sliders that are confusing to anyone but themselves, but overall, it's very nicely done. The apartment space at the top is a little truncated, but it absolutely nails the cozy vibes. Kinda makes me want to cuddle up in some blankets, maybe with some plushies, and just relax and sleep for a bit, which probably would be possible if I wasn't working on 31 other videos due out next month. If I had to criticize anything, most of it's already things I took issue with in regards to the previous sets, just in more egregious ways. Some of the colors are a little bit desaturated, and on their own they can look a bit cheap. Not when combined all together, and the build quality is pretty high, so nothing feels brittle, but some of the plastic colors could have used more pigment. There's also a lot more discrepancies when compared to instruction models. I reckon I lost a good 20 minutes of the build thanks to getting colors wrong, because the printing in the instructions showed them to be significantly different. I'm willing to bet this is a pre-production thing though. As far as I'm aware, this set is due for release later in the year, so kinks like this should be able to be ironed out. Same with my last concern. Unfortunately, I got saddled with a missing piece on the street pole, so I had to improvise with the spare pieces in the set. Again, as a pre-production sample, I'm sure things like this won't be an issue when it releases fully. And even then, from my research, it appears Funwhole has an extensive customer care program, even touting it in the set itself with information cards. Not something I need to go down myself, but it appears you can rest easy if you get saddled with a QC gremlin. This was a very fun build. I still prefer the antique store, maybe because I was more surprised by it, but this is a very nice modular building to add to any collection. Really, it just makes me wish I had places to display them, but alas, that's probably an eventuality. Just not right now. My understanding is that this set will release towards the middle of December, and more details about its purchase should be available when it drops. In the meantime, I'll leave information about Funwhole in the description below, and you can check out the other products they have. Big thanks again for sending me this sample. It was a blast building from start to finish.